Hi, I'm Daniel Wilson, the president of Wilson Environmental Contracting, a local design build firm here in Santa Barbara, and we're here at the Stevenson Landscape and Residence in Goleta, right at the confluence of a couple creeks. And we're going to walk around and discover some of the 40 native plants that are planted here and get to see for ourselves why there's so much wildlife that comes and visits here and why this property uses so little water. It formerly used to be completely enclosed backyard and front yard with hedges, all ivy here in the front and lawn in the backyard, and with a slope that ran down essentially towards the creek. And we came in and removed all of the non-native hedges and ivy and lawn, and have come in and replaced it with approximately 40 Santa Barbara originated native plants. So the front yard here, which formerly had hedge all the way down to the sidewalk and had ivy in the front, which was a lovely haven for rats, skunks, and possums, we took all that out, and in order to maintain and preserve some separation between the properties and a little bit of privacy, but maintain and allow for safety, we planted the manzanitas, the cultivar manzanitas, which are native to California. These guys not necessarily to Santa Barbara. But you can see as they grow up, they're slow growing, very beautiful bark. They have beautiful in late spring, early summer umbel bells that hang down that the birds come in and pollinate. It's just lovely. And then the berries are fruit for myriad of wildlife, including bears, which they don't necessarily have here, but they do up in the hills. It fills in and grows nicely and exceptionally drought tolerant. You can pretty much water it 1 to 2 times a year is all you need to once it gets established. And still providing some structural form and looks attractive year-round in the residential landscape. And then switching gears, looking down here on this ground cover, again, this used to be all ivy. This is a ceanothus, native to, I believe, the Big Sur region, not too far away. You see it's a nice low growing ground cover that's very hardy and doesn't provide a lot of environment for vermin to live in. Super drought tolerant, green year round, and little blue flowers at certain times of the year, early summer. So a nice attractive alternative to lawn, and certainly ivy, but definitely a great lawn alternative. Because of the many native plants that are here and the California appropriate plants that are adapted to our unique Santa Barbara climate, most of them have flowers of some sort that attract pollinators virtually throughout the year, which include hummingbirds, birds, seed feeders, butterflies and moths, and certainly bees. And it's just a lush haven for insect pollinators. Just kind of looking across this way, we're in the month of October right now, which is essentially the drought doldrums of plant life in Santa Barbara. This is about as bad as it possibly can look during the year. And so from here on out, there's always going to be more flowers. So we can see even October, we've got some hummingbird sage, we've got some deer grass flowers, which a lot of actually, when that goes more to seed, the native birds love this. And there's some grevillea here that's from New Zealand, and that's got flowers on it right now. And so there's always something in bloom here year round. This used to be asphalt and concrete, several different layers, with a London plane tree, which is a non-native relative of our local native creek sycamore tree, one planted on either side of the driveway. And we pulled all the asphalt and concrete out and recycled it in a road base, and installed this concrete paver cobblestone driveway that has a lot of pore spaces in it. And the kidney bean shape, we had it made specially at 80 millimeters, so it's a little thicker. It's H20 rated, could put a fire engine on top of here, no problem. And did a reinforced edge, but the rest of it is permeable gravel aggregate layers underneath. And we made a special kind of a grout mix that's very permeable, doesn't keep the weeds out all the way, but allows water to flow in on a 1 inch an hour rainfall. Virtually all the water on this property soaks in, including that which flows on this driveway. Now we're going to look at the rainwater and the stormwater setup here. So we're going to start by looking up top, and the water that comes down through that brown gutter is intercepted off a portion of the roof. It's raised above the main gutter, which is all the way out at the fascia because we're trying to get elevation to maximize a higher tank. In fact, we have 3 tanks here in the side yard. And so by putting the diverter higher up on the roof, we're able to get an extra 1 foot, which gets us about an extra 300 gallons of stored water here on this property. So the water then flows down through the brown gutter to a leaf screen, a mosquito screen, then by gravity comes down here and flows into this first flush tank, which is all gravity, takes out the sediments, and then overflows into this tank, which is about 700 gallons. And then once this tank is full, the first flush shuts off, the tank shuts off, and all automatically, because rain is often at 3 or 4 in the morning and no one wants to be turning valves, it all passively by gravity then overflows up into this drainage pipe, which comes down underneath the fence, which then merges with the main gutter off the whole roof fascia, goes underneath this pathway right here, and then all with head pressure and gravity then pops up through this spring-loaded drain and then is able to flow by gravity in a nice little curving path through a cobble swale down through these manzanitas here before it gets to the street. So again, the idea is here is we're trying to slow water down and allow it just sink in, capture it, store it, and the extra water irrigate the plants here. You know, every little bit of rainfall we have is precious. Welcome to the backyard. This is where the magic happens. This is where the hedges all came down and we opened up this amazing view shed to the creek, which is just right over there. And we recreated the sound of the creek with this super efficient recirculating ecological pond, which has tunnels in it for the fish. Sometimes I see white egrets and herons on these rocks trying to get the fish. Most of the plants that are in here are native plants that have been harvested out of the local creeks. This is a local textile rush that the Native Americans used for weaving baskets and mats. This right here is called Eleocharis, which is a native vernal pool and wetland plant. And then there's native deergrass, Muhlenbergia origens, and it grows to about a 4-foot sphere. It's perennial. It more or less looks like this throughout the year. Once a year after these inflorescences and seed heads dry up and they go all brown, you can cut them off. The beauty of this plant right here is it'll live for decades and decades. In the backcountry, I've seen these plants that could be 60, 80 years old. I don't know, but it seems like they live a long time. They're used to getting heavily browsed by deer and formerly from elk, so they can handle substantial pruning. And some people like to chop their deergrass down every year. I don't like to. I like them to, maybe every 4 or 5 years, I'll give them a serious cut to allow them to reinvigorate. But I find that they structurally and architecturally look really lovely. I do like to put these on either side of entry paths as sort of like a formal, soft entry. One reason that I located them right here is the pond filter and pump box is just behind me down here. And so it's a soft way to walk in and get to it. Whoever's maintaining it doesn't necessarily get scratched, but it's also a soft way where anyone walking by here who's a little slow in walking or unstable, it's a nice soft barrier to help keep people from falling into this pond. So it's a safety thing as well. So the backyard when I showed up this whole thing was lawn and weeds, and the lawn came about right here, and then there was a slope that essentially ran down to the creek. So in addition to removing all the lawn, we built some terrace walls here to effectively extend out the living space and give more space that the homeowners could enjoy their backyard. And we also, by doing so, created terraces for planting fruit trees, native plants, and then the pore spaces in the wall, nice and open. We plug succulents in, so there's something growing all over the place. Tons of lizards in this area right here. And looking in the background, you can see the gorgeous mountain view, which is a large feature in this landscape. Another great aspect of the backyard and the stormwater management is the entire backyard was ever so slightly regraded. So instead of sheet flowing right down to the creek, we actually pitched it So it heads to the north, created a very slight swale in the landscape that's not perceptible to the eye, and especially when mulch and plants go on top. But what it does is it takes all the water and allows it to ever so slowly flow down towards the other end of the property, where it collects into a cobble creek bed, a drain box, goes underneath the terraces right here, and then turns around and does a 100-foot long perforated pipe wrapped in filter fabric just on the outside of the fence, which acts as a linear infiltration gallery. It's like a French drain flipped upside down. And that helps spread the water out again before it just goes right to the creek, which is top of bank is 50 feet away. So as we look around this landscape, the idea here for the clients was to open it up, allow nature to come back in, create a nice haven for nature, and create sitting spaces all around, so outdoor living just for enjoyment, and food production, and using the water that came on this property as efficiently as possible, and just to create a nice peaceful environment where the client, they're both painters, they could hang out on this gazebo here with a beautiful mountain view, and they could paint and just create a nice, safe environment, a staycation, essentially, a place where they could, thrive and flourish at home.